Welcome to FemSTEM, the podcast where we are dedicated to bridging the gender gap in STEM fields by spotlighting remarkable women making waves in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I'm your host, Risha Mehta, and today we have a very inspiring guest whose journey is not only breaking barriers but also paving the way for future generations. But before we dive into our conversation with her, let's set the stage. Joining me is Premlata Poonia, a visionary leader and the founder of Hamari Laado. Hamari Laado is an initiative dedicated to advancing girls' education and empowerment in rural India. She is also the author of Borders, Bridges, Belonging, a poignant book that chronicles her journey. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm really excited to delve into your journey, learn more about you and get more insights.
Thank you. Thank you, Tisha. I'm so happy to be here. I want to congratulate you on starting this because I think when we are young, we have so many ideas and sometimes we just wonder, should we start or not? So I'm super happy that you took the initiative and you started. So that's half the battle won. And I wish you all the best on this journey. And thank you for having me. And hello, everyone, whoever is listening to this podcast.
Thank you so much. So, to start off, could you probably introduce yourself and walk us through your journey? Like, what does your career journey look like?
Absolutely. So I think if somebody will have to know it fully, they'll have to read the book, which you mentioned, Border Bridges Belonging. But I'll give you little snippets of my journey. I grew up in a small village in northern Rajasthan, along the India-Pakistan border. It's called Likhmewala. So I went to school there, and then moved to a close-by town for high school, typical government Hindi medium schools. Um, and then moved to Jaipur for college, went to IMT Ghaziabad for grad school, worked in Punjab, then went to Jharkhand, worked in Tata Steel there, and then moved to the US to do my MBA at University of Michigan at Ross School of Business. And from there on, I went to work with Cummins. It manufactures engines, not an engineer, because we'll come to that today, because I think your topic, you talk about STEM quite a bit. So we'll get into that a little bit. Not an engineer. There are different reasons for that. But yeah, I worked with them, worked in their corporate responsibility in the foundation, moved to sales, sold diesel engines in southern United States. And then got to lead $1 billion business for them with 5 different technologies that were serving in the market. So about 10 years in the US, a little bit less than 10 years, a decade, I decided to move back. Actually, I went to the US with the idea of wanting to move back. I was never that I will settle there. I always wanted to come back and start something for girls. So I moved back in 2020. It was a good reminder. COVID really was in so many ways that you have to live your dreams now. We might die any day, like literally. So I moved back 2020 and started Hamari Laado. I moved back to my village and started from there. And we do multiple programs that supplement the gaps that I see in education. So these are not educational program per se, but they're skill, they're confidence building. They work as bridges. So our role I see at Hamari Laado is being a bridge for rural girls. So started that. It's 4th year into that. Wrote the book in between. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
That was quite the journey. So, like you mentioned, you went to US, you were leading a $1 billion company. And after all of that, you could have easily settled there, right? But what made you to come back? Why do you always had the thought of coming back and opening Hamari Laado? Like, what inspired this movement, really?
Yeah, I mean, I could have, I bought a house there, and I could very well, I paid off my college loans and everything, but I really could not, because I was so, from the moment I reached at IMT Ghaziabad, my grad school, I realized that I was the only person like me in that place. And from then onwards, anywhere I went, I realized that people from rural areas, Hindi medium, art student girls, they don't make into these places. Even like I worked with Tata Steel, we hired GTs, engineers. They all came from IITs, they were engineers. And to even get into engineering, you require a certain level of basic education and a level of preparation. So that pretty much excludes the rural government Hindi medium students. That's how it is. So I realized there weren't people like me anywhere. And that was the first reminder. And I was 19 when I went to grad school. So those 2 years were really eye-opening in so many ways. And I realized, oh, I'm just one in a billion for whom certain dots connected and I landed here. And after that, that feeling continued to deepen. And when I was leading $1 billion business for a global company, I realized, yeah, doing more of this is not what I'm meant to do. I want to build bridges for so many girls who were left behind while I kept moving on. And there's a lot of work that's happening. I always see that the government is doing a lot, parents are trying to do a lot, civil society is doing a lot, and I have a role to play because I know the gaps. I've traversed that journey from that little village to being in in big position, global great business schools, premier MBA and all that. And I knew what are the dots that don't connect. So I had this heaviness, this sense of guilt that every upward move created in me. So I really could not have just lived there. I had to give it a try. And I knew if it doesn't work, I'll go back to doing, selling diesel engines or shampoo or whatever. But I need to give it a shot.
Um, uh, so, what were the dots that you felt connected for you that does not connect for the people, the other girls over there?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I'm born late 80s, early 90s. When I was growing up, the schools in villages in Rajasthan taught till, let's say, fifth grade. Some taught till eighth, government schools. So what was the option for parents after eighth for girls? Drop out, right? Like there's no option. So for my father said, no, I want my daughters to study. So he moved to a close by town. So he sold his village house. He put his farms on the rent. He moved his animals and his whole house with a very limited income and moved to a close by town. So many villagers can't do that, right? So there wasn't that option. So I'm telling at that time, and then I'll walk you through what's happening now and what are the opportunities now. So I moved to the high school there. And at that high school, when I was doing, I scored highest marks in maths in 10th grade. But I couldn't study math after that because it was not taught. They're only teaching arts. And the idea is even if you study math, what will you do after this? So that even ability to study. So if there is only one school, one government school that teaches only certain subjects, how can you even study science and engineering? So, okay, I couldn't. But then after college, my dad decided to move us to Jaipur. And he was a teacher with the government in primary education. It was a huge step for him to sell everything that he had and move us to Jaipur and survive on a very limited income and raise four kids. And then I came here. I joined Maharani's college in Jaipur. And then I thought, oh, I want to take the CAT exam. Oh, CAT exam is all written in English. So if you are kid who grew up in Hindi medium, which is pretty much 60% of the population, there's no way you can clear that exam. It's math and English. So I gave it a year and I got really good marks, but that just does not happen, you know. And I realized that's really odd. Once you reach there, you realize like they didn't need to have it in English. It's like, and math is math. It doesn't require to be in English. I can still solve a math problem knowing math in Hindi, just terms. But we have excluded an entire society based on the language. So I reached and I somehow made it there. And I realized, oh, I'm the only child who's come from a Hindi medium background here. I'm the only one who's come from not the tier two, the capital cities, not after that, the district level cities, it's the tehsils and villages. The people don't make it that far because the exams are set up that way. And the girls, I mean, normal parent would say, okay, you're certain age, we'll marry you off. So I realized you're just like you're the only person, and then that will get further. Um, it that problem gets deeper further and further because as you let's say imagine going to the US and taking GMAT and going to a premier business school. Who comes to these business schools from across the world? Only people with a certain amount of money. It's not just India, everywhere. Even the Chinese friends who came to the American business schools, they were a very upper middle class families. So So you realize, oh, okay, I was lucky. I got the college loan from the US, and University of Michigan gave loan, and that's how I could do it. And then I worked 5 years and paid it. But the next year they stopped it. So now even from India, if you want to access a loan of 1 crore or 2 crore, you're not, if you're an average lower middle class, there's just no way you can afford it. So, so I felt the dots connected for me. They don't connect for a lot of people. So when I moved back, so here's what happened. 2017, I grew up in a border area. 70 years after the independence of the country, finally, the village schools in Rajasthan were upgraded till 12th grade. So the village school in my village got upgraded to 12th grade. So now all the girls can study at least till 12th. Right? They may not have science as a subject, but at least even if you study arts, that's fine, at least till 12th grade. So those dots are extremely critical to have in the first place. It took us 70 years to have schools till 12th in our villages. But thankfully, at least at 70, it happened. Right? So now my dream is when we achieve 100 years, when we are at 2047, we should still be living in that era of 1947, from whether it's school, whether it's access, whether it's the social norms. Girls should be able to run freely. You've seen the picture. That's a picture from my village, and the yellow building behind that's the school that opened in 1953. I learned my first alphabets there. It got upgraded to 12th grade at 70 years of finally being independent. So my hope is when we turn 100, streets of India should not look different than streets of any truly developed country, where girls can step out and go for a run at any point of time. So the social norms, the confidence, those are the gaps that still exist. So that's what my goal is to work on, whatever the culturally, whatever the social norm, whatever the skill, confidence gaps that exist. So even if now you have a book, you still cannot succeed. Earlier language was a barrier, today that might be something else. Whether it's the digital divide, whether it's access to even if you have access to information, you might still be behind city kids who are competing with you in a lot of other things. So I'm gonna stop here. I think I gave a long answer, so I want you to ask more question.
So to end it off, what like advice would you give to young girls who are aspiring to enter like the field, and particularly from like similar background as yours? What would
Mhm.
be some advice you would give?
I feel like the world is changing so fast. Sometimes my advice may not hold right for them, but a couple of things that I would say. One is, just like I was commending you on, take initiative, start things. It doesn't have to be perfect. You will not have the skill uh, at, at 38 if you don't try something at 21 and improve it, right? So try wherever, at whatever stage. If there's a program taking place in a school, try it. If there's an opportunity to volunteer, go volunteer. If there's, any big thing you build, you start with one brick. So same way, if you want to open a non-profit one day, go start volunteering today. I volunteered my entire career. Even when I was young in school, I was volunteer at polio drives. When I was later at work, I would volunteer. So start things small wherever you are. If, like, for you, if you have interest in getting women more in STEM, starting this podcast is a great thing. So same way, wherever people are, they should look at taking initiative. And for young girls especially, don't hesitate. Don't think about making it perfect. Go try it. That's one thing. And second thing, for me, I also believe that uh, staying connected to the roots is extremely critical. Like, your information, go to a nearby village, go to a nearby this thing, go to a nearby government school. Don't always uh, like, there's a way to get information and engage in your local community wherever you are, and get that information and support it. That's how you could get started on your journey of whatever you are trying to do. So sometimes stepping out, because we also, I'm aware we've become that generation where everything is on phone, and we see our entire reality through that. And it's important to break away from that and engage in the community wherever you are. So engage in community and take initiative.
I also read like you're doing a PhD currently in something related to girls' education only. Was there any like surprising data you found, or alarming thing that you read about that you were like, oh, what?
I did. It was a Brookings report from 2016. They'd written a book called "What Works in Girls' Education," and that book just obviously uh, changed my whole mindset, because I lived that journey without realizing, and they had put together really good data. It was data from United Nations from 2013 or 14, data of 61 developing countries, education data, and they said three factors impact educational attainment: income, so low versus high versus low; location, urban versus rural; and gender, means boys versus girl. So rural low income girls, they have the least amount of educational attainment, and it will take another 100 years before these girls in 61 developing countries would have like completed a basic 10th grade or 8th grade education. And I realized, yeah, like this is where I come from. This is the girls I studied around, and they all got married after 4th grade, 5th grade, whatever. And that's not just the reality of one village, it's 61 developing countries. And it makes sense. The income has impact, and so is rural versus urban. Like I was telling you, reached the college and I realized there's nobody here from a village, right? And the gender piece. So that was really that intersectionality of location, income, and gender, and how it plays out. Um, I knew it, I lived it, but just to see it on a piece of paper and so vastly prevalent really changed the direction. And I was reading it while I'm sitting in the US working in this fancy company, and I see this report, this book, and I realize, oh, okay, like this is a bigger reality, and we need to work towards to become some way of part of unpacking this problem and solving it.
With that, we have come to an end of our podcast. Vim, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey, your insights today. It was like truly inspiring to talk to you. Like I learned so many different aspects of your life, and it was really, really fun.
Thank you
This
so much for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you for anybody who's been listening or watching it. Go look at our website, go look at the book, and do write to us with ideas. So thank you.
This is the FemSTEM podcast, where inspiration and knowledge collides to propel us forward towards limitless possibilities. Thank you. Part 2 of this podcast, where you learn more about Prem's organization, Hamari Laado, and all the incredible noble causes that it has.